like LangGraph, and I have also did some webinars on the LangChain as well. So last time I did a complete end-to-end demo on how to create agentic applications using LangGraph, where we worked on creating a reasoning action engine. Today, I'll be talking about the Pydantic AI. It is recently released, like a few months back, and it has done it is doing pretty well in this space, and people have been adapting to it. So today we'll be talking about it. We will go through some code and how you can create your customized agents using Pydantic AI, and how these frameworks are different from each other. Like, when should we use uh, the one and when should we use the other one? So we'll be discussing about all. Okay, so I think I always share this and I always talk about this tweet that Andrew Ng did, I think in the mid of 2024. He's one of the grandmasters in the AI. He did some initial work on the deep learning. He's a part of the co-founder of the Google Brain, and also he has done a major work in the field of AI. So he did this tweet that how much of in the coming years that AI agentic workflows will drive a massive progress this year, even more than the generation, like the foundation models. So previously, what we were doing is that we used to use mostly the zero shot mode, like prompting model to generate final output without like revisiting it work. So we did not have this capability initially to revisit our work. Once we had given this instruction to the model, it gave a final response. So we had a very less control over our outputs. So I think he like, if you, let's say if you are asking someone to compose an essay from start to finish, so you will be like, there will be steps where you will be revisiting it, you will have a critical analysis. So that's how you improve your work. So that is what agentic applications are doing it. They can do that decision making part in your application, that how it needs to go ahead, either it needs to stop, how it needs to. So that part is, and that is like more closer to AGI, because we are going towards the AGI. You would have seen the recent operator agent from the OpenAI. That what it does is that it is nothing but a browser agent. What it does is that it goes over your browser, you give it a prompt, it is checking the web search, then finding the output, then deciding either it needs to go to the other step. It is completely a decision making on the flow. Uh, Claude has also their computer use model, and OpenAI, like just I think few days ago they released operator model. I think that's also in preview. So AI, like agentic applications, are more closer to the AGI, if I say, because not exactly, but as generally people are referring it to. So if I quick, if we quickly talk about what is an agent, so the definitions could be like they could differ. Like, we do not have a consensus on exact definition of an agent, but the general definition is an automated reasoning and decision engine. That it is reasoning, and then it decides like a human does. That is what we are trying to achieve, like ASI, artificial super intelligence, or artificial general intelligence. We are trying to do that gap. If we can uh, decrease that gap of reasoning and deciding. If you see initially, we had just like directly LLM taking the query, generating the answer. It does not have that capabilities. Now it has. If you see the O1 models of OpenAI, even the DeepSeek model, if you see that, it shows the complete reasoning. So agents are more like that, an automated reasoning and decision engine, where like if you talk about function, like we, in a sense of agent, like the actions that our agents going to take while producing an outcomes. So these are the specific functions that agent will be taking. So in that sense, this is how if you talk about in a specific agent, it could have some functions, it could have some prompts, it could have some nodes if I talk about in a uh, bigger manner. So lastly, when we did LangGraph, so we saw that it had nodes which were more like uh, uh, the function, the main logic that we were defining. So I'll just first give you a overview of the agentic frameworks because there are so many frameworks, and do we like do we need to use them or not? So if you talk about, you can do these works yourselves. These are just the wrappers that they have made it easier for you. You can create your React agent. Function calling is already given there. You can use any model to do the at the like if you use some tools, they are doing nothing. It is just a function calling where you have defined some schema of the tool, some descriptions of the tool, and based on the query and the prompt, it is deciding what tool to call. So you can do that as well yourself. But if we look at the bigger picture, so you can see there are the frameworks like LangGraph, QI, PydanticAI, Llama index workflows. They are just different wrappers that they are making it easier for to use those workflows because like though there are open source codes that you can also investigate if you want to look at that, like LangGraph code. They have just given you easier patterns to use. If you talk about LangGraph, it is a graph based uh, framework where you have like nodes and edges, nodes like agents, or it could be a specific function, and edges like how you want your uh, agent to perform. So let's say if you have some specific agent with, you can decide what edges it is supposed to take, more like a workflow system. And if we talk about QAI, so they have made it like task-based, role-based agent collaboration. So more like it is a much easier than the LangGraph one because that is a more like a complex one. And that today we'll be covering the Pydantic AI. So Pydantic, I don't know if you have used Pydantic. So Pydantic is a framework that has been used for the validation part in the Python. Fast API is using it. It was a layer. It was like a middle layer for OpenAI regarding like output parsers when we wanted a specific output. So just to validate your structure, your schema, we were using Pydantic, and Pydantic was being used even in LangChain and different frameworks. So recently, few months back, they came up with their own frameworks, Pydantic AI. We are using Pydantic models for agent schemas with a focus on like data validation, specific structure, and there are other things that they are giving you. We'll be discussing that how you can easily create some agents with different tools and how much you have control over it. Now, what is Pydantic AI? So, Pydantic AI, as you mentioned, is a Python framework that acts as a bridge between developers and LLMs. They clearly say that it is acting as a bridge between developers and LLMs. So, what it does is that it gives you out of the box tools to create agents like a specific task. It will give you system prompt functionality, how you can define a schema of the output, how you have like injections like dependency injections that you can give to your model while it is running on the flow, how you can, because when your agent is in production, so you are, these minor problems can break it, like the output, if your output is not very structured or if it is not following a specific schema. And if you, even if you want some specific structure, so back in the days, if you talk about initially, so we were prompting LM to give it a JSON, to give it a list or whatever the schema, and obviously LM being the uncertain, it would give you most of the time the like you are not sure whether it will be the JSON or it, like it would give you some schema, but that was not a very strict. You cannot you could not rely on that. So in that case, uh, like LangChain and other frameworks actually relied on the Pydantic specifically to define that base schema, and then using that model, then came the function calling as well, where you could define the schema that was binded to your LLM. So LLM was very strictly following that schema. So because that was a very major problem that the developers were facing while creating LLM based application. So Pydantic AI is like, it could be very helpful in that, because since they are also like, initially they did the work on the validation part. So when it comes to AI, so they are, while they are creating the agents or the AI frameworks, so they are like focusing on that part, that it could be reliable, it could be production grade application, not just specific demos that you can do. So I just like discuss like few features of the Pydantic AI. Like model agnostic, you could clearly easily use any model with it. You are not supposed to like clearly use that SDK again and again, but you can clearly just define the model that you're using, either it's through Grok, either it is an open source, it is Claude, OpenAI, Cohere, or whatever. I think there are so many model supports that Pydantic AI is offering, and you can easily use that. And we'll be seeing that. I'll be showing you how we are going to do that. Then it comes to the type safety, as I mentioned, while we defining our type. So we want to validate that it does not break it while the input type, or there could be output type that we want, that our input or output has to adhere to this schema. It provides that you like inbuilt structured responses, as we mentioned. If you want that specific structure for your LLM response, so you can define some schema to follow. Other than that, recently they released a graph support. Like we have graphs in the LangGraph. They have also given us support for graphs where you can define that graph structure, how your it will be maintaining the state, and for the complete agent. But I think it is very early. They are still working on that. Whole library is like in a preview mode, but support like recently, very recently they released it, and they are like with with time they are releasing different supports and making it easier. Like you can create. Also, they are allowing you to like, if there's any suggestions, they are very openly receiving that. So, and if now we talk about what is in Pydantic AI agent, so in Pydantic AI, normally the agent is like, it has the system prompts, it has dependency management, function tools, and structured output. So system prompts like guidelines for the LLM's behavior. We can guide our LLM how it has to behave. Then dependency management, maybe type safe dependencies. You can, let's say, any dependency on, could be any variable that you want to inject while the agent is live. So on the flow, you can give that very type safe variable while your agent is working. There are function tools, like you can create some functions that could be used as tools for executing specific tasks. How we are supposed to create tools, we'll see that. And also like the structure outputs, there's just few of the major things that I'm talking. There are other things as well that you can use from the Pydantic AI agent. But structure outputs, like we can specify the expected output format that we want our LM to follow. So I think now we'll be going towards our notebook. We have some notebooks that we'll be seeing how like what are the some fundamental things that we discussed, how Pydantic AI is implementing it. Then we will be creating some specific research agent also. And if you have some questions at the end of the session, you can mention your questions in the chat. I'll be on by one taking those questions and we can discuss further. So just let me show you on the screen. Nadia, let me know when the screen is visible.
Yes, we can see your screen, Heather.
Thank you. So, everyone, we'll first be seeing some fundamentals, Pydantic AI fundamentals that we just discussed. So here I have some, I have the notebook where I have written some code First, we'll see that, and then we'll create our research agent as well. So you can see here, I'm just importing some like this for like I'll be using some OpenAI API key, Grok API key, and since the Pydantic AI is asynchronous, so if you want to use it in the notebook, so you need to import the nest async and apply this, because otherwise it will not be running in your notebook and will give you the error. So you can first define this, and I have these API keys. I'm using OpenAI API, and also I have this. I'm taking some models from the Grok as well. So from the Grok, like Grok is a platform which offers different models. You can use the models, and it is like very quick responses if you want to use, or if you want to stream quick responses, you can use the Grok. So I'll be using Llama and models to show you. So you can here see from the Pydantic AI, I'm importing an agent class and the model retry. So it is just a simple plain agent, nothing, just an LLM where I'm using, you can see here, I'm just defining OpenAI GPT-4o, and I've given it a system prompt with reply with one sentence only, and agent.run saying, where does hello world come from? So it is just a simple plain LLM. You can see it just gave that an answer where you can see hello world is a traditional phrase used in. And after that, now to change the system prompt, you cannot like go there, but here is a decorator, like to inject a system prompt. You can, let's say I have defined this at the rate agent.system prompt, and now the same system prompt, I mean give a long paragraph answer and make it dense. And on the same time, I showed you that we can use, so you can see like just with agent.model here, our model will be replaced with Grok. Here I'm using Llama 3.3, and it is just very easy to add things and replace models, replace adding system prompts, injecting different variables. So I just ran this one, and if you see, so you will see that our prompt will reflect here. It gave us a detailed answer where we injected our system prompt. Then we also use the agent.model, and also they supported this DeepSeek as well. So we can also use this model and see. So it might show that I was telling you about the reasoning thing. Okay, so you can see it is here reasoning that. Okay, so I need to figure out where the hello world comes from. I have this. So this is where it is actually deciding how it needs to answer. So they have the support of R1 and without like reasoning. So you can see that when I use this DeepSeek, and it is showing the whole phenomena, like whole process of where it is doing the reasoning. So this was about like how you can use different agents, and it is very simple, easier to, so like a layman it wouldn't be very hard for a layman to like to be very familiar with this framework. So it is not that much of a very complex coding or framework, so it would be very easier. You can get started with that. Down the line you can obviously create the custom and complex flows agents, but for a very starter, it could be you can easily get started with the Pydantic AI. And okay, now basic structured output. First we talk about different model agnostic, then we talk about the structured output. So you can see here the base class that I'm defining, it is from the Pydantic, and later these LangChain also adopted initially. I'm not saying that it is not available in other frameworks, but it is there. But they initially uh, adapted this, and they were actually using Pydantic AI. So you can see here I'm defining that, okay, I want my model final response to be result type to be, it needs to have a city, country, region, famous person from city, and I have defined the same like the model. You can see GPT-4o, and again the same agent class. Our model is there. If you see here, so here it has result type. So in result type, we are defining our schema that we want our output to be. And I have done some word player, so you can see I'm just asking it the windy city in the US of A. So more like I want to ask the windy city in the USA, and in the output, I want it to respond with the city country that we have specified it. We are not prompting it anything. We have just defined that schema, and when I run it, so you can see that it will show us. So it is like using the model OpenAI. Now, specifically, it has sorry, shown us that the city Chicago, country United States. It found out obviously that I mean to say United States. The reason Chicago is known as the windy city due to its. It is giving me the reason. I have not prompted it that you are supposed to like. It could be a otherwise I it could be a detailed prompt where I could say, okay, I'll be giving you a query. You are supposed to find out the city, and in that case, it could hallucinate in that because that is not a very structured output schema that you have not defined. So let's say if I had famous city, just run it and see if it is following the schema that we have designed. Okay, so it has given that the famous place of city is Willis Tower, formerly known as Sears Tower. So it is like if you want your structured outputs, and there are so many use cases where you want your output to be specific, following the formats in the different form scenarios cases where you want some where you are giving it some forms, some receipts, some bills, and different type of medical scenarios, insurance scenarios, where do you want a specific output from the data that you are giving it after it reads the data. It could be any images where it reads the data. It would have many irrelevant things. In that sense, you do not want the relevant. You want what you have defined. Let's say you have given it a CV. You want specific fields from that CV. And obviously, different CVs have different, will not have a uniform structure. It will not be Europass or any different structure that would be following. So in that case, you cannot write a code that or a regex that get that field because they could be different. So there we use the LLM part that LLM could know. First, it scripts we scripts the data using different like uh, PyPDF or libraries, and after that we can prompt it RLM as well. But in that case, that is the thing that it could miss that. But if we specify some specific model schema that it needs to adhere to, so it will be following that. Uh, okay, so now we just chat if I go ahead. So here I want to show you a few things that here find agent. I have given it a system prompt. Uh, you can see see the process of how that process worked, how it found out to follow. So you can see that. Am I audible? Okay, sure. I can.
Heather, you can just repeat the things you said like 2 minutes ago,
Okay,
maybe. Because you lagged
okay,
a bit.
sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I was talking about that. Now I just want to show you how the process that we are doing, like we are giving it a query and how it is processing that. How so in that case, I've just created this that you can see here. I have an agent where I'm giving it an just model GPT-4o mini. So you can see we have used like a lot of models. We used a GPT-4o, then we used Grok, and you can see that how easy. I'm not defining some structure. I'm not importing anything. That okay, I need to import that SDK from that supported library. So it is very easier. Like it is very flexible. You can just easily change that. So this was like I just asked you to give me a joke and give me a joke. So now if we see, so you can see that when I'm printing that all messages, so you can see the system prompt is showing okay, be a helpful assistant. this is a system prompt, user prompt, that the query that we gave. There are a few things that are already, like they are uh, adding the timestamp, time zone and all. So you can also extract, if you need that, you can extract that. Here's our user prompt part. Then you can see the model response. So model response that we get, why did the scarecrow win an award, and the joke that it extracted, and also the model name, the timestamp. So it has this, and easily you can modify this one. There's very customizable thing where you can, specifically if you want to add chat history, so you can just get these messages, new messages, and append. So you can see here message history. If I just explain it, please. So here I've not given it a context about what I'm asking it to explain. I just gave it a message history as new messages, because these are the new messages, the message that it previously gave me. So you can see here that when I'm asking it to explain, it knew that I'm talking about the joke, and it actually explained. So now I think these were just fundamental things, that how there we can use some of the major major like uh, features that the Pydantic AI provides us. But secondly, now we'll be creating some agent, some Pydantic AI research agent. So I have some code that I'll be writing here, and then uh, I'll show you what it means and how it follows. So here I'm adding few supports from the Pydantic AI agent base model to define some typing imports, to define our fields as well, that what type of fields we want, what type of data we want, data classes. If we have some data that we want to, as a context we want to inject, so we'll be defining it in that class. I'm also using Tably search, so I'm defining the Tably client here. Some date time, because we'll be using that. Some open, you can see OpenAI model, some imports. So let me just, so I'll be adding the Tably API key. So they give a free tier as well, from 1,000 requests. So you can also go to Tably and you can just create an your ID there, and it will, you can get your API key. Now I'll be importing the OpenAI API key. Okay, so now these are some dependencies that I have imported and used, which we'll be later using. I'll be defining some data class, since we have already imported that. So you can see it, suppose this is a decorator, and we'll be creating a search agent. What the agent would do is that it would research from the web search, Tably web search, and a specific format that we want it to be. And after that, it will be converting that response to the Markdown. So we'll be using some tools. So I can search data class. So, and what I want is that there are few variables that I'll be using. So it will be max results, which will be the integer, the data class for our search, which will be the integer value, and today's date. We'll be getting the date, and we wanna tell our model that what our application, that what is the type of our these variables that we'll be using. Then also search dependencies. For our search, we have today's date, obviously, that our search will be using. So we want to clearly tell, okay, the type is string. If it is not string, obviously it will throw an error. And After that, we'll be defining our class, which is search output. So after it has the if it has done the research from, and we are importing from base model. So we have few fields in our search that we'll be using. One is that the title of our the data that we'll be getting from the web search, the description, and the links. So I can define title, and I want tell okay, it would be a string, and what the description, so that our LM knows that what do we want from the search. So here I'm defining, and I'll show you how it is. So title of research article, this will be Markdown heading 2. So when it will return, when our model will finally return, so it will return in this format that I'm asking it to. It will not be returning heading 3 or 4, this specific. So you can like make it flexible according to your phenomena, how you want that field, your output to be. And then description, whose type would be string again, obviously, and the field description of research title. This will be Markdown paragraph. And after that, links. Now I want the links to be in list. Okay, now this is the class that I've defined for my uh, mod research output that will be getting after the search, after it has done the search. And after that, the complete research outputs class, I want it to be in a list that we are taking from the research output, that will be in itself in one of the list. So now we can define the model here. I'm defining an OpenAI model where I'm taking GPT-4o, and I have defined the API key above. Wait, let's see. Now we have, I'll be defining the research agent. So research agent, like previously, here I have taken the agent class where I'm telling it okay. So I have the model which we have defined here. Then we have the depth type, which are our dependencies, search dependencies. And we told them okay, these are the today's date, and then the result type. So we can see that from the research agent, the complete output would be all research output. And we have defined, okay, you are an expert LLM research assistant. You are tasked with identifying all the major LLMs related news for the previous week. You need to collect that news, and come up with research for multiple articles. Each article should have a title, description, and links to the sources. And each article must be news, not generic information about LLMs. You need to write maximum of 5 articles. So these are some system prompt, our output schema that we want it to follow, and our search dependencies. Now you have defined a specific agent, and but you need to give your agent some tools to work on. So you can maybe define some researcher agent, then researching, if I researching agent, one could have the tool could be for the research tool, one could be the report writing tool, one could be the critic tool, who critically checks that, one could be a revision tool that revise that. So it is more like agent, and it has the tools that it will be using. So first is obviously we want to do this research and the search tool. So how you can define a tool is that research agent, the agent that we define dot tool. So there are two ways you can either define dot tool and tool plane. One could be, other way could be that I follow the same but tool plane. But the difference is that once if we have some dependencies that you are giving to our agent while on the flow, so you are supposed to write it, since you saw that we have the search data class that, so it needs to have some integer, uh, the integer of max number and different variables. So in that case, you will be defining the tool. But if it does not have any dependency, so you can use the dot tool plainly. So here I have defined this search entirely. What it does is that it max results. For this, it use search data dot depths dot max results. So if we see, for this search data, we are giving it the search data class, and from that we clearly define search data class max results. So it will be taking that integer value for that, and it know that it has to have the value has to be follow this type and this validation. It will be validating that it uh, structure or the field value that following this correct data class that we are defining. So if I run this, so we have this search entirely, and the second tool is that I'm writing right to Markdown file. So it will be very not will be very clear. So I want is that the same way we are giving it the dependencies, and this tool writes the research outputs to Markdown file. We are taking it like from the dependencies. We are taking the today's date for our file name because we want a file name to use the date. So that's why we are taking the today's date, and we are opening. So in our research outputs, we will have title because we defined clearly that we need title, we need description, and we need links. So we know that it will be in the output. So in that case, what we'll be doing is that uh, we are taking that title, we are taking the description, and we are taking the uh, and we are following in, and we are taking also the links. So and we are returning our complete file name. So if I run this, and now as you mentioned, there will be dependencies that will be taken. So we want current date that we are taking from date time dot now, uh, which is already a library, and search dependencies. We know, as you mentioned, we have these dependencies because we are telling in our tool that you need to use. I think I remove the search. Search agent tool command. Okay, now we are taking the search dependencies. We are taking the max results. Today's date. We are taking this current date, and if you see in our final call, we are giving the search depth. Search depth is the variables, the dependencies that we are injecting. So this was our research agent that we initially initiated. We are attaching our tools with our agent. You can see here. So now this whole thing has our agents, has our whole the schemas, and it has all the things that you have defined previously. Now I'm asking it to get me the LMs related news from all over the world. So so it will be running, and we'll see how it displays the result. So obviously it is first going through doing the complete search, and we have find, obviously it could be like if you want to 10 results, and there are if you want specifically want to know what are the params that Tabby supports, so you can do that. So it has given the result, and if you see clearly the result, so you can see that previously in the first notebook I showed that how it has model requests params. So you have like this was our system prompt, then this is our user prompt, and this is the model response. So in model response, you can see there are tool call part. Our tool name is Tavily, tool name Tavily, search in Tavily, and it went and it has brought all the things that we defined. So you can see all the URLs, the description, that the schema that we had asked it to. And after that, the second part is tool called write to MD file. So it has also written that to Markdown file. And now to see how it looks, so I have just simple small script to see, because it has saved. We are already saving it, so it has saved in my uh, home page, the folder. It has saved that the file name. But if you want to see here, so I'm just getting the path. So you can see this is how we were getting the title, we are getting the description, we are getting the links in a markdown manner. And if we go here, so we also decided that you can see the research output. We wanted the complete output to be in the list, and then we have the title, description, and here you can see the links are in list, and the whole research output is also in the list. Why? Because let's go back and you can see the whole output. We are asking it, once you have the output, you need to follow that it needs to be in a list. So you can see the whole output that we are getting, it is in a list. And do when we get into that output or we investigate that, so you can clearly see that the title is in string, the description, and when you go to the links, so it shows that it is in a list manner. So these are the major things that you can. So you can see that we very easy we created this agent, that, and you can have multiple tools here. You might want to use a report writing tool, you might want to use a uh, let's say you revise like reflection tool, which could reflect if it is following the schema, or if it is following how you want your initial query, what was your input, and if it is compare, if it would compare to that input and give you the final output. So you can have multiple tools, a research tool, rewriting tool, report writing tool, final output generation tool, summary writing, key points. So it could be different scenarios that you can define. And so I was actually also, you can go ahead and there are so many things that they are giving in the Pydantic documentation. So you can system prompt, as we discussed, like system prompt, we had function tools that we defined, how we defined each tool, structure result type. So you can see here, this is the we have seen all the things that we wanted, the city and country, and like it is showing LM models, how you can, so you can see the models that it is giving us. So it has different Anthropic, support Claude, and here Google Vertex, and so many more. OpenAI, O1. So all the models you can define here. Then there are also examples. They have created some agents, so you can follow this to know how you can create yours, like weather agent, SQL generation, flight booking. It is a complete agent where you might see they are defining like where so many dependencies, and it could be a bit complex, but you can clearly see how things work, how you can use these different services that this library gives you. So you can see that extract flights tool, where it will be like finding the details of flight. Then you can see result validator. It goes through the output and see validates that output. So these are, I think, they have also, like as I was mentioning, the graph. So they are, it is completely obviously they are working on it. So clearly, they have told you they don't use a nail gun unless you need a nail gun. So it is more about that. Just don't be, just don't go by the flow. But if you need it, uh, so then you can use. So here, obviously, they will be using the state machines that obviously LangGraph is also providing. That it has state nodes, and I think I previously covered that. If you want to see, so you can go to the data science YouTube page. I completely covered the whole webinar last time. So I think that was all from my side. If you guys have any questions, I can take those. So yes, I think I can share the GitHub link, and then you can get the credentials. Uh, Also, which LMs have you used? So I think I have just directly imported from the Pydantic AI. You can directly import. Pydantic AI has all the supports uh, uh, to use the different models. So you can clearly import that from PydanticAI.models, and uh, from there you can use different models that you want to use. No, you do not need an API from Pydantic AI. It is just an open. It is a framework that you want to use. The APIs that you need are Tabili and the any model. If you are using, let's say if you're using uh, the OpenAI, so obviously you need OpenAI API key. And Rahul, you are asking. That is something that we can discuss. So it depends how you want to use it. So if I talk about myself, my experience, so I would obviously not prefer right now because it is in a very nascent phase. It is completely being developed. And for the complex and having a control, so I would prefer LangChain, the Lang graph for creating an agentic applications. I personally have been using that. But it depends what is the use case and the production grade, and if it is like uh, low manner applications, so you can for demos and you can do that. But and also it is like right now it is being developed, so and like graph has been there for almost more than a year, so uh, that is the difference there. But it is a bit easier obviously if you come to that part. So it is, can one use LangChain with Pydantic? I think they do not right now. There is not a support because all the things that they are using the same that LangChain is giving you. So you cannot obviously they have not. Uh, I'm not seeing that in the documentation because all the things that LangChain offers you, what is it? It gives you how you can easily create an LM framework using different models, different wrappers, different chainings, different tools. So I think Pydantic is doing the same. Majid, it is agentic applications. I think it depends because production grade applications, when it comes to agents, it is bit very uncertain. You need to have a very specific use case. You need to test it thoroughly because it could go tangent easily. Since obviously there will be decision making, and if you are using React agent, let's say via LM, use the tool calls, so it could route to different tools. So it depends how many tools you want to use agent. If it is a workflow, so there's a different, if it is a workflow where you have defined steps that it needs to follow there, it might not be very, you can easily do that. But when it comes to the specific tool calling agent where you are using an LLM to tool call the tools, so in that case, it could go tangent easily. You need to clearly define the, like prompting, the descriptions, the tools, the logic that tool has. So you can easily embed. I think that is a embedding part is different thing. But if you talk about like the reliability, so it needs testing and it is in the works. Like you need to see that what is your use case and does it even need agent, or you can do it like a simple plain manner just using direct LLM, not some decision making. But if it needs, you can go ahead with that. You need to see which framework supports your uh, use case, and then I think you can easily use one. And if it is a very light manner, So you can use maybe Pydantic AI or QI, but let's say if you have some complex logic, if you want a control over memory, because LangGraph has a lot of things like Python support different memory, and so yeah, that is one major part. Yes, I think yes, you can use that. Right, you can use that AWS Azure, and yes, they support it, I think. So Pydantic, it is more like adapting it to your, because they are just defining simple. These are the things that you normally even we use in a very vanilla Python as well. Uh, so you can use that. You need to see what, like if you want to talking about the LMs, or so obviously they support the Azure one. I have seen the Azure, but if you want to use the Pydantic specifically, or so obviously you can use that as well within your application. Thank you.
Okay, so I think Heather, you've covered, I think, all of the questions that were there. Does anyone have more questions? You can of course ask Heather right now.
Okay, I'll share with, I think, the team, and then they can share with you. I think I'm seeing the Niranjan, which framework. So I think we covered that as well. It depends on your use case. I would prefer, like, it depends on how much flexibility and control you want over your application, because not every application needs agentic you do that, without it. But if they are like easily, I think if it is a light manner application, you can go with Pydantic AI. And since also it is in a development mode, so if it is a bit complex, so I would say you can go with LangGraph, Crew AI, or Llama Index as well. I have personally used LangGraph, but I'm still yet to experience the Crew AI. Okay, Alex also has a current session and tool functions. So okay, so I think Alex, there you might need to use that. You might need to use a custom logic for that. So maybe you can have some ID that you can use to associate your session, because as you are saying that, so you want to use the current session specific data, so you can maybe write some custom logic where I think I also came across this problem previously. So what I did is that I wrote at the backend, I had this specific ID that I was using for or my chat session, each chat session. So in that case, every time if a thread ID is different, so only if someone access the same thread, then that session would history would appear, not cross across the not the history of multiple sessions. So I think if I'm getting it right, so you can maybe use the thread ID something to save your uh, history or the chat of that specific session, and then trigger it when if it is like again someone uses that session or thread.